Sakathamritam Tapta Jivanam Kavibhiriritam Kalmashapaham Sravanamangalam Srimadattatam Bhuvi Grananti Bhurida Janam. So in the last class, we were studying the topic, the dharma from the perspective of bhakti. So as a prelude of today's class, we would just like to mention that we have covered the Navadha Bhakti, the preparatory bhakti, and now we are about to enter into the discussion of the Raganuga Bhakti. But before entering into the discussion of Raganuga Bhakti, these two topics, that the dharma from the perspective of bhakti, and today the Sakāma Bhakti and Niṣkāma Bhakti, which we are going to discuss today. These topics as an introduction to the study of the Raganuga Bhakti is very important. So in the last class we have already taken the topic, we have taken up the topic, that dharma from the perspective of bhakti, and today we will try to just have an overview of what actually is Sakāma Bhakti as per the bhakti tradition. We will find something interesting there, that even the idea of liberation, that also comes under Sakāma Bhakti. And what is Niṣkāma Bhakti? That bhakti for the purpose of bhakti alone, devotion for devotion. Devotion is the means, devotion is the end. So that's the Niṣkāma Bhakti. So what actually is this Sakāma Bhakti? What actually is this Niṣkāma Bhakti? If we have a preliminary idea, an overview of this, then it will be easy for us to understand the Raganuga Bhakti as will be discussed in the succeeding classes, in the following classes. So now, today, we enter into the topic of Sakāma Bhakti and Niṣkāma Bhakti. So, Sakāma and Niṣkāma, what these two terms means? Along with desire, without desire. Now, desire comes, when the desire comes, whenever there is the context of action. The desire is always bound to find expression as action. If I am having a desire, to fulfill that desire, I have to resort to some action. So first, we should know what this karma, the action, has been defined as per the bhakti tradition is concerned. So we find Bhagavan Sri Krishna in the Gita is defining karma. In the 8th chapter, the 3rd verse, we will find that the definition of karma is something which is very precise and very scientific. What Bhagavan is saying there? Bhuta bhavat bhavakaro visargaha karma sangitaha. Bhuta bhavot bhavakara. When the conscious principle is coming in association with the psychophysical existence, then what happens? The existence comes into being. Bhuta bhava. Bhuta means that which has been born. So that's which becomes animated. So that is bhuta bhava. Udbhava. Udbhava means it emanates. When the conscious principles, because of ignorance, as in Vedanta we know, comes in association with the psychophysical existence, the ego emanates. And that ego is the very causal factor for all the activities which you find in the world, in the so-called animate existence. Wherever we find the expression of chit, we find that ego is present. Maybe in some it is very prominent, in some it is very, very almost dormant, it's not visible at all, but still that ego is there. And that from that ego, the karma, all the actions come, that we have actually discussed in the Yoga Sutra, that how from that ego the actions originate. How? Has very nicely in the Yoga Sutra, it has been mentioned that there are pancha klesha, 5 afflictions. What's that? First comes avidya, followed by asmita, followed by raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. We have studied in details when we were studying in Yoga Sutra, but just as a prelude for today's discussion, that what action means, let us try to understand that because of ignorance, the conscious principle, when reflected in the psychophysical existence, it takes the reflection to be real, and that reflection on the psychophysical existence is what is called ego. Now, when that ego is generated, from that the other 3 afflictions come into existence. What are they? Raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. What are they? Raga means attachment, dvesha, hatred, abhinivesha, fear of death, tremendous attachment to life. The tremendous attachment to life entails in fear of death. So how it happens? So the conscious principle is immortal. It is a trikal avadita satya. It was, it is, it will be, without any transformation. But the moment it gets reflected in the psychophysical existence, what happens? Something from within that psychophysical existence is echoing back. Just the way when I stand in front of a mountain and shout my name, the echo, I hear the echo, and I get deluded. A small child may get deluded. He may think someone is calling him from the mountains. It is actually his own voice which is being echoed back. So similarly, when the conscious principle is getting reflected in the psychophysical existence, the conscious principle is always asserting, I am immortal, I am ever fulfilled. And the echo comes from the psychophysical existence, I am immortal, I am ever fulfilled. But now, being attached, identified with the psychophysical existence, it finds there is a contradiction. Something within is constantly saying, I am immortal. Something within is saying that there is no want for me, I am ever fulfilled. But I find for the sustenance of this body-mind complex, I have to resort to some food. I have to procreate. Otherwise, this body-mind complex is not going to last forever. So it has to continue through the succeeding generations. And to sustain myself, I need food. And from this, the urge for actions come. Karma. You will find that even in a small microbe, that ego is there. It's though it's very, very dormant. It's not visible, but it's there. How? You find expression that suppose in a petri dish, you are looking through a microscope and you find many randomly moving microbes. So this microbe, small body, invisible. There also the same thing has happened. The consciousness has got associated with the microbe body and the ego has been generated. And as a result, what happens? As it gets identified with that microbe body, you'll find an interesting thing. If I just put a drop of nutrient in the center of the petri dish and look through the microscope, I will find all those microbes which were moving randomly. They have gathered a direction. They are moving towards the nutrient. Raga, that's the raga. That the something within is saying that I'm eternal, but I find this body-mind complex will disintegrate. It needs something to sustain itself, nutrients. So that raga, because of this ignorance, the ego has developed, and from that ego, anything which sustains my body-mind complex, I get attached towards it. For even a small microbe, it is running. They have gathered the direction towards that nutrient. if instead of nutrient I put some toxin, if some toxic material there, it will just have an opposite direction. It will move away from it. It wants to protect itself. It is having tremendous aversion for something that may not be favorable for his psychophysical existence. It is aversion, that is dvesha. And this raga and dvesha, when intensified, it finds expression as abhinivesha. I hate death and I am extremely attached to life. That's the abhinivesha. So all the actions from where it has originated, that we find that the microbe's action from where it has originated, the moment I give nutrient, it is drawn towards it. Why the ego is saying that to sustain yourself, the one who is saying that you are immortal, to realize that I have to have these nutrients to sustain myself. That's why I'm attached to it. From that raga, the karma emanates. I'm going towards it. From dvesha, I protect myself. So for all living creatures, you will find these two modes are constantly working. What are these two modes? One is growth mode and another is the protection mode. I have to have the nutrients, I have to save myself from the toxins. So this speaks of growth mode and the protection mode. That speaks of raga and dvesha. And from these two, this growth mode, raga, and protection mode, dvesha, all the actions emanate. In the microbe it is so simple, but the same equation we will find even in the advanced creature. All our actions at last boils down to this two, this raga, dvesha, and of course the intensified form of raga, dvesha both is abhinivesha. So all the karmas emanate from that. So now we will understand this simple portion of the verse, the third verse. It's just one phrase of that verse, of the 8th chapter. How scientifically it is speaking of bhuta bhava udbhava karo, from where the karma comes, the karma samgita, from the moment that bhuta bhava, the ego emanates. The moment I feel that I am an embodied existence, that's the bhuta bhava. When that has emanated, udbhava, from that the visarga, in the entire creation, visarga speaks of the entire creation, all the actions originate from that. So the creative force which gives rise to desires of living wills is the action, is karma. Now this karma again we will find in the Vedas. As in other religions too, we will find the same thing has been designated. Some karmas are good, some are evil. So in the Abrahamic religions we find there are the commandments, that all the actions which follows the commandments are good, which contradicts the commandments are evil. The same thing we find even in the Vedas. That's the idea of vidhis and nishedhas. That certain things are vidhi, we have to do's. The do's are the vidhis, and nishedhas are the don'ts, the do's and don'ts. So when the pursuit of this desire is undertaken by means of actions, which is performed according to these Vedic legal codes and injunctions, so that's dharma. And when the desires are persuaded disregarding these codes, then karma becomes adharma. And that's what has been described in the Bhagavatam. What is this dharmic karma and what is adharmic karma. What is that? Veda pranihito dharmo. It's in the 40th verse of the first chapter of the 6th canto of Bhagavatam. Veda pranihito dharma. Whatever is prescribed by the Vedas, that is dharma. Adharmo tat viparyaya. And anything which transgresses that, viparyaya means to transgress, that is adharma. Now this dharma, all the actions, the good and evil actions, they, as per all the Vedic traditions, the Oriental traditions, even in the Buddhists, the Jainas, they all believe in reincarnation. And this reincarnation is decided by this dharma and adharma, all the actions which we have resorted to, all the actions which are resorted to, either it is dharma or it is adharma, whatever it may be, this storehouse of all these actions, the results, we have to accrue that result, we have to experience the results of those actions. and the results of that actions finds expression as Jati, Ayu, Bhoga. In the Yoga Sutra, in the 13th and the 14th verse of the second chapter, this idea that when we reincarnate, this our karmas determine our jati. When we are again born, the jati, in what body we will be born, in what spaces we will be born, there's a jati. Ayu, what will be our lifespan, that is determined. And bhoga, all the pleasurable and distressful experiences we will be going through in the life, that also is determined at the time of birth. The jati, ayu, bhoga. So thus we see that action prompted by desire generates the seeds for all the reactions, karmic reactions, irrespective of whether dharmic or adharmic. If for dharmic, the karmic reactions will be good. For adharmic, it will be evil, it will be bad. I have to experience the distressful experiences resulting from adharma and all the pleasurable experiences resulting from dharma. But all this karma is bound to generate that result which I will be experiencing in the future births. That's the actions that perpetuates into reincarnation, results in reincarnation. So in all the Vedic traditions as well as in the other Orient traditions like Buddhist and in the Jain tradition, we find this idea is there. So in synopsis, what we can see, that whenever I'm doing action out of desire, it is a desire which results in action. And now whenever I'm doing action, there must be a motivational factor. A desire must be there behind it. And if I'm doing action with associated with that desire, it will accrue some result. So we can easily say, if we can do action without desire, by default, all the actions precedes the fact that there is some desire behind it. But we can design that we as a human being have evolved to such a level that we need not be instinctual. For other animals, their instinct is the thing which governs them. As per the instinct, they're bound to act. But as a human being, we have a choice. We can act as per our instinct or as per our design. What's the design? That I know that if my actions are associated with the desires, then it is bound to accrue result. So if I can perform the action without the desires, then it will help me in two ways. In what way? That I cannot suddenly stop the actions, because my past actions has created a tremendous impetus. There is an impulsive force behind it, and I cannot suddenly stop it. That example which we give in so many contexts, that when the fan is revolving, it's only a fool who will try to stop the fan by trying to holding to the blades forcefully. That will destroy the motor of the fan and you will get hurt. So it is destruction. Suddenly when there's a huge force behind it, I cannot stop. So what's the way? Switch off. Just switch off the switch. The moment the driving force, the electricity which is behind the movement of the motor of the fan, that is disconnected, then what happens? Because of the past momentum, it will go on revolving for some time to stop at last. So that's what we do. We never forcefully try to stop it. So here also the same idea works, that the driving force behind action is desire. If I switch off that desire, then the moment the past momentum which has resulted in all the prarabdha karma, all the actions which I have to go through in this life, that gets exhausted. And once that gets exhausted, and then what happens? That I need not be forced to do action, and that entails in my liberation, emancipation. So, to do actions without desire is one of the basic spiritual practice. That there shouldn't be any desire behind my action. But it is easier said than done. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say very nicely, Toblar bol mukhe bola sahoj, hate ana kothin. That when I am playing a percussion, my teacher comes and says me the rhythm. He asks me to repeat the rhythm after him. Very easily I memorize it. In 2 minutes I memorize it, and he asks me to recite, I recite it. And now he says, bring it in your hands. It may take months. So it's easier said than done. That actions, if I can do without desires, it will at last result in emancipation. But how to do actions without desire? So here, as per the Bhakti traditions, so they say a very interesting thing, that this seed of reaction, good as well as bad, can be eradicated when the karma is offered to the divine, to Krishna. That I am not doing it for my selfish interest. All the actions, what's the basic idea? That even if I try to look at myself without any bias, this example which we give again and again, when the mother feels this tremendous affection, this parental affection for the child. Now, if she is not really very, very minute observer, the ego will develop. She will think, it is I who am loving the child. How much effort goes in bringing up the child. So much of labor. And there comes of this proprietorship comes. It is I who am loving. And we find all the parents do suffer when the children are growing up as per the nature of the worldly existence. This parental love is the only love where you will find when the one whom you are loving is growing, the object of love is getting separated. For all other love speaks of getting united. That two persons were separate, they get united in love. But mother's love is something different. The more the child grows, the child was one with the mother. It was in the mother's womb. And as it grows, starts growing, first it is totally dependent on the mother. And then as it starts growing, it starts interacting with the external world. He develops his own friends. The external, and more we will find he's getting distance from the parent. And that do enter in suffering. Why? Because out of ignorance, the mother thought it is she who was loving. But if she unbiasedly tried to observe what was going on within, she will find that she was bound to love. That the law of nature is such that we have been born with that parental love. It's in our heart. We are helpless. We are bound to. Can you see a single creature who doesn't love the young ones? What to speak of humans? Any creature. So the God, to take care of his creation, has implanted that love. That is the yajna. There is the idea of yajna in Gita. It is not just the fire sacrifice. It is this interbeing. This I, the God has created us with that you have to interact with the world through that love. That is yajna. That he has implanted that in our heart. That's why in Gita that there's verses there. Saha yajna praja srishtva. When he created this world, he created along with yajna. And now, if I can really realize that, what happens? There is no question of having that sense of proprietorship. It is I who am loving. That ego factor gets attenuated. What I feel? It is the God's plan. It is the God, to take care of his creation, has implanted that love in the heart of the mother, of the father. So it is not I who am loving. I am just the channel through which the God's love is flowing. It is God who is manifesting through that love to take care of his creation. If I am always aware of that, then what happens? I do my best. I am the instrument. I am an instrument made by the God with all the faculties to take care of his creation. So I use all the faculties. I don't forsake my duties. But at the same time, there is no expectation. Whatever I do, I say, oh God, it is you who have given that love to in my heart to take care of creation. I am doing to the best of my ability, and then I offer it to you. Because it is not that I am going to enjoy the result, because I am just an instrument. As Swami Ramakrishnananda ji used to say very nicely, a pen never says that I have written so many books. The one who is holding the pen, he is the author, isn't it? So we are just the pen in the hand of the divine. So if we keep this in mind, then all the action becomes worship. And that's the idea we find in Bhagavad Gita. That's how, with this orientation, we can get rid of all the desires which motivates us for action. The action can still go on, but the desire to enjoy its result, that we can easily get rid of. And that's the idea which we find in Bhagavad Gita. In the 27th and the 28th verse of the 9th chapter, what's being told there? Yat karoshi yadashnashi yajjuhosi dadasi yat. Yat tapasyasi kaunteya tat kurushva madarpanam. And then what happens? Shubha shubha falairevam mokshase karma vandanai sannyasa yoga yuktatma vimukto mam upaishyasi. This wonderful idea. Whatever you do, because you're just an instrument. It is because of the ego you feel you are doing. But once you are aware it is the divine who is working through you, then vayat karoshi. Whatever you are doing, yadashnashi, whatever you are eating, yajju hosi, whatever you offer as an oblation to the sacred fire. In the Vedic society, that was a must. Every home had this sacrificial fire. So that was a part of their life, that action. So whatever offering you're giving to that sacrificial fire, dadasi what? Yat, whatever you are giving as a gift, bestowing as a gift to the one who are needy. Yat tapasya, whatever austerities you are performing. Austerities doesn't mean standing in one leg with the hands oppressed. A student's austerity is studying, that any endeavor that leads to the prosperity of the society, any endeavor of my own well-being as well as the well-being of my family as well as society, that speaks of austerity. That austerities I perform, O son of Kunti, O Kaunteya, do them as an offering to me. Once you know that it is through you I am working, being aware of that fact, offer all your activities, whatever you are doing, to me. By that what will happen? By dedicating all your works to me, you will be freed from the bondage of good and bad results. As we saw, that it is all the results of the good and bad, all the results of these good and bad actions, good and evil actions, that is the cause of reincarnation. The karma phala which we are, the results of the actions which we have accrued, that's what we experience in the next birth. So now the action can continue. I cannot simply stop my desire, the actions. With that awareness that it is the divine who is working through me, I try to get rid of the desires in the form of enjoying the results of action, because I have offered it to the divine. Then what happens? Shubha shubha falairevam mokshase karma bandhanai. That by dedicating all your works to me, you will be freed from the bondage of good and bad results. And with your mind attached to me through renunciation. Sannyasa means this mental renunciation. In the mind, your actions are going on. You have not renounced the action. Sannyasa in Bhagavad Gita, the sannyasa means the renouncing of the desires. Sannyasa yoga yuktatma. How can you renounce your desires? By always being in association with the self. Yoga yuktatma. The self is beyond all desires. It is as it is. It is ever fulfilled. If I am attached to that, then I can be just a witness. And I need not be attached to my actions. That's the sannyasa yoga. By being in union with your own atma, you can easily practice this sannyasa. This mental detachment comes. And then that can entail in that liberation. Vimukta ma, by being liberated from this bondage of good and evil actions, at last you attain me and me alone. Mam means me, upashyasi means you attain. Upashyasi means to attain. So you reach me, you attain me by dedicating all your actions, offering the results of all the actions to me. So do everything, but offer the results to me. So that's the idea from the Bhakti Shastra, from the Bhakti standpoint. Thus in Bhakti Yoga, what we find, that all the routine duties need not be abandoned. We need not have to run away from life. The routine duties need not be abandoned, but can become Bhakti when it is offered to the Ishvara. That's what the same idea in Bhagavad Gita we find in the Bhagavatam. In the 36th verse, in the 2nd chapter, the 11th canto of Bhagavatam, there is this nice verse. What is that? Kayena vacha manasa indriyaiva buddhyatmana va anusrita swabhavat karoti yad sakalang parasmai narayana yeti samarpayet tat. So what is in accordance with our particular nature that we have acquired in this life. So this all our varna asrama, even in Bhagavad Gita they say, is determined by our guna karma. Means by our birth. It is not the family in which we are born. When I am born as per my past life, I have been born with particular tendencies. I am born with particular swabhava. So that swabhava determines my profession, my natural inclinations. That determines what occupations I will be adopting in this life. So, thus, in accordance with a particular nature one has acquired in life, whatever one does with body, this kayena, vacha, manasa, indriya, by his body, by his words, by his mind and the senses, and intelligence, buddhyatmana, or with his intelligence, whatever he does, one should offer them to the Supreme Thinking. This is for the pleasure of Lord Narayana. Narayana yeti samarpayet tat. Everything I offer that. The same idea in the Bhagavad Gita. That's the easy way for getting rid of the desires behind the action. So that's what the idea we find in the Bhagavatam. So now, very interesting. But what about, it's not so easy. And then also that it's to say that, but we find that though I understand that I am supposed to get rid of the desires, intellectually I understand that it is the God who is working through me. But it's not that easy. Just to say that as God is working through me, I have no desires. Still I will find that there are so many things we understand, but because of our past karma, we develop so strong embedded instincts that though the mind understands, but the body still continues in its old way. Just a simple example, a drug addict. A drug addict knows very well that the drug is destroying his life. At a certain point he realizes that. His relationships are all gone, his health has been totally, he has ransacked his health. Everything is disintegrating. But still he cannot leave his addiction. So that even Bhagavatam, the Bhakti Shastra, understands that. So what they're saying? Yes, if you can really offer the actions to the God, all your desires, that thinking that it is the Lord who is working through me, so there is no question of enjoying the results of action I offer to the divine. I understand, but I find that it's not that easy. Then we find in the Vedas they have mentioned that yes, of the 4 Purusharthas, they are Kama and Artha. They are also a Purushartha. I can run after wealth. I can enjoy the sunset pleasures of life, but they have to be guided by Dharma. So in Bhagavatam we will find this idea. Well, if you still have the inclinations towards enjoying the world, in accruing the wealth, even after understanding that it has to be offered to the divine, well, enjoy. But though you are enjoying, but first have an idea that I offer to the divine and then enjoy. And that's how the bhakti can be still associated. This bhakti will be helping you to sublimate your desires. Just to give a simple example, that I am very much fond of mangoes. In the season, proper season, when the mango starts coming in the market, I purchase them, and just simply I eat the mangoes. It is an expression of my greed. Now what I do, I buy the mangoes. Before I do a simple act. I just offer it in front of the divine, sit there, and I just feel that the divine is sanctifying the food. He has sanctified it. And then I take it as a sanctified prasadam. So what is happening? It's not that I have relinquished my greed, but I have sublimated my greed. Now when I'm taking that mango, of course I relish it, but behind that you'll find a devotion has developed, subtle. That this is the food which has been sanctified by the divine. It is the prasada. And so your greed is now getting sublimated into devotion. And that Bhagavatam has also realized. So they say, okay, if the desires are still there, but that doesn't mean that you cannot relate to the God with devotion. Still you can relate to God with devotion. And that's been spoken of in Bhagavatam. We find in the 23rd and in the 24th verse of the 11th chapter of 11th canto. This wonderful idea is that. What's that? This Shraddhalu mat katha srinvan Subhadra loka pavani Gayan anusmaran karma Janma cha abhinayan muhu Madarthe dharma kamarthan Acharan mad apasraya Labhate Niṣkāma bhakti Mai udbhava sanatane. So a faithful person listening to, reciting, remembering the narrations about me, which are auspicious and which purify the world, and even enacting my birth and deeds. This is all the Natya Shastra, all these the classical dance forms. They're actually Natya Shastra. We will find in all the dance form, all the leelas, the divine plays are reenacted. It's not simply just what is a physical movement. If you can understand the song which is going on behind as this background song of the dance, it's all the Leela Katha which is being enacted. So all this thing helps you to be in association with the divine. Yes, I still have the pursuit for the wealth, artha, kama. I still find that I'm still attached to the desires of life. Well, but still, all these activities can go on. And this will help you to develop the devotion gradually. That's what we find even in the life of Sri Ramakrishna. When Girish Ghosh, he was this playwright, he was the director, the playwright. He was a very famous, the owner of the theatre. He used to direct so many plays, dramas. So he was a very famous, renowned dramatist of his days. Coming in contact with Sri Ramakrishna, he started developing this renunciation, detachment. And one day he came and told Sri Ramakrishna, I want to renounce them. And Sri Ramakrishna immediately says, no. Continue with that. What is he says? Tate lok shikkha hobe. Very interesting. What you are doing, it has a wonderful effect on the society. All those divine plays, the life of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you are dramatizing it. By that, people are becoming aware of all the spiritual traditions. That way you are helping the humankind in so many ways. Lok shikha. By educating the human being in the ways of life, you are doing a great work. Don't renounce all of them. Go through that. And that way you are also in association with the divine. And it gives you time for the desires to fall off naturally, automatically. And your devotion grows spontaneously. It takes its own time, but it will grow. So that's why we find even Sri Ramakrishna, the same tradition, is saying that lok shikkya hobe, don't renounce that. And that's the idea we find in the Bhagavatam. So yes, your pursuit for artha can go on, kama can go on, but at the same time try to associate with the divine with faith by listening to the divine, to the the life, the teachings, katha, by reciting them, by remembering the narrations about the Lord, meditating on them, contemplating on this divine Leela, which are auspicious. That just by contemplating you find you are getting purified, it purifies the world. And not only that, you are enacting my birth, my deeds, while pursuing dharma, artha and kama. You still continue with your pursuit for the dharma, artha, kama. Artha and kama guided by the dharma. That's what the pursuit of dharma, artha, kama means. And then what happens? For my sake, after taking shelter of me, you will gradually attain unwavering bhakti for me. So that's the thing, even in Bhagavatam we say. So what we are finding, in conclusion now, what we can say, what we have discussed, that irrespective of whether one is free from desire or full of desire, or desirous for liberation, if one is intelligent, one should intensely worship the Supreme Divine, Supreme Person, through the practice of Bhakti Yoga. So it is prescribed for all. Because this alone can help us to come out from this entanglement to the dualities of this world and be in the perpetual bliss, being in association with the Divine. So what's in the Bhagavatam we find, the 10th verse, in the 3rd chapter of the 2nd canto of Bhagavatam, that's the wonderful idea. Akama, if you are desireless, akama, sarva kamava, if you have all the desires, infinite desires, or you have this desire for moksha, moksha kama, udaradhi, tivrena bhakti yogena, yajet purusham param. So that's the injunction. So whatever state you may be, bhakti is applicable to you all. Akama, sarva kamava, moksha kama. For everyone, it is applicable. So resort to bhakti. That's what bhakti this scripture is stressing. Resort to devotion and devotion alone. So that's the way, that even if I have a lot of desires, if I resort to devotion, with these desires, they will get sublimated. And at last it will get ripened into Niṣkāma bhakti, where I will find all the worldly desires has fallen off, but my love for the divine, that alone, is now resplendent. It was previously covered with the other desires, but they have fallen off. This has become resplendent. And that's how Sakāma bhakti gradually matures into the Niṣkāma bhakti. And the best example in Bhagavatam we'll find of this transformation of Sakāma bhakti to Niṣkāma bhakti is in the life of Dhruva. And we are not going to the details. If you study the life of this Maharaja Dhruva, he started his tapasya, his intense spiritual practices with some desires, that he was insulted by his this stepmother, and his father was also indifferent. When his mother has insulted him, the father never came to his protection. He was indifferent. And with a tremendous insult, that his stepmother told that however you may sit on your father's lap, it is my child who is going to become the king. Such a tremendous insult was thirsted upon Dhruva. And as a young, tender child, he felt tremendously that, there's a hurt. He got tremendous hurt. He went to the forest and he resorted to this intense spiritual practice when he was praying to the Lord. And that prayer was Sakāma, with desire. That you, Lord, you are all powerful. Today I have been thrown out has been removed from my father's lap, and I was insulted. But it is you who can, that is what you say, that change my destiny. I want to be the king. That desiring to be the king, he started his spiritual, this prayers. His prayer was with a desire. But when at last God, Vishnu, came in front of him, he was overwhelmed with devotion. And as he was a small child, he couldn't express in words his tremendous that devotion which has developed in his heart. And God being omniscient, he knew this precarious condition of Dhruva. He's full of devotion, but he has not sufficient words to speak out. And he touched his conch shell on the throat of Dhruva. And immediately Dhruva spelled out all his emotions. He spelled out in beautiful forms of verses. And then what he said was very interesting. That now I'm in the presence of the mine of treasures. Now Vishnu reminded him when he was praising, Dhruva was praising Vishnu. Vishnu reminded, my child must probably have forgotten that why you have called me. Ask for that boon. And then what he says is something interesting. When you have already got the treasure, how can you ask for something small? As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, that he is a fool who digs a well on the bank of Ganges. Is there need for digging a well on the bank of a river? You are in the you are just have the access to the perpetual flow of that water. What's the need for digging a well there? And that's the idea we find this Dhruva Maharaj is saying. What he's saying? Swarajyang yacchato modhyan mano me bhikshito bata ishwarat kshina punyena falikaran iva adhana. That because of my state of complete foolishness, modhyan, this is the word which speaks of complete foolishness. And because of this, the draining of all my pious activities, because of my ego, whatever pious activities I had, I became kshina punya. I have drained them. I've just wasted them. That's kshina punya. And that made me something inert, stupid. And that's why I was just asking for small thing like a kingdom. And where the God is here in presence of me to offer his sovereignty. Swarajyang yacchato. And I wanted this manovat bhikshito. Just like a small beggar, I was asking for some small material, name, fame and prosperity. And then he gives a wonderful allegory. My case is just like a poor man. Adhana, poor man. What? That who is, when he is satisfied, a great emperor. He's in presence of the great emperor, and somehow this emperor has got pleased with him and asks for me anything. And what he asks for just a few broken grains of husked rice. Falikaran speaks of this broken rice. He just asks for that. So I am that full. And the presence of you, you are the be all and end all of existence. You are the Lord, whose just mere presence make you feel full of love. How can I ask for some small things in your presence? Even in the life of Swami Vivekananda we find that when he was in need of his father has passed away and he was in need for some sustenance. He went to Ramakrishna and told that mother listens to you. Why not you please pray for me that I may, I may that have the mere means for sustenance. And Ramakrishna says, why me? You yourself can go and pray to the mother. Go and ask her. She will fulfill your desire. 3 times Swami, this Naren, went. And he was in the overwhelming presence of the Divine Mother. The mother was not a stone image for her. She was a living presence. And Naren got so much this devotionally overwhelmed, he forgot that for what he was there. He prayed for devotion, he prayed for discrimination, all the spiritual things. He came back. Ramakrishna, have you asked for what you went? No, I forgot. And the 3rd time, though he remembered, now he was very much feeling embarrassed. That how can I ask for all these small things in the presence of the Divine Mother? So the same thing we find this in all the spiritual traditions. And then Sri Ramakrishna, of course, says that by mother's grace, there won't be any dearth for this mere sustenance which you require. That will be there. So that's a different thing. But here also we find the same idea, that Sakāma, in the presence of the divine, because of the overwhelming devotion, it gradually becomes Niṣkāma. That's why Bhagavatam is again and again saying, resort to bhakti. Don't think that I am impure, how can I go and pray to Lord? In whatever state you may be, there is no restriction to relate to the divine through devotion. In whatever state you may be, wherever you may be, in all condition, you can resort to the divine through devotion. So that's why with whatever we as per our nature have three gunas, sattvic, rajasic, tamasic, and we can transcend them again through devotion. That's in the 29th verse, in the 25th chapter of the 11th canto. There's nice verses there. Sattvikam sukham atmotham vishayotham tu rajasam tamasam moha dainyatham nirgunam mat apasrayam. That happiness is derived from the self who is in the mode of sattva. So this is very important. From here the idea of praying to God for liberation will come. We will come to it shortly. So first let us understand the one who is trying to be established in the self. He has got rid of the desire and he is absorbed in the self. He is a sattvic person. He is enjoying the sattvic sukha. He has contemplated on God to enjoy the bliss of the self. He is enjoying the sattvic sukha. The one who has prayed to God for the happiness of the sense gratification, he is enjoying the rajasic sukha. He is a rajasic person. And those, you will find that even in India, you will find that in Swami Vivekananda used to say nicely that in India, everything, people are religious. They do everything religiously. Even now, you will go in the olden days, there used to be some goddess, this Mother Kali goddess, where the dacoits used to go and pray, saying that today that I am going out for looting, please see that I am quite successful in looting others. So that's Kalis are called Dakat Kali. So that type of mode of worship which speaks of destruction, which speaks of animosity, hurting others, but he is doing through devotion. So that is a tamasic type of devotion. Bhagavatam is broad enough to say, well, we don't restrict you, but gradually when you through devotion you are trying to, in whatever way you may be tamasic, you may be rajasic, you may be sattvic. When you are trying to relate to the divine through as per your nature, at last you will find this, your gunas are falling, they are getting obliterated, and you are developing a pure love for the divine. So that's the idea here. This happiness derived from the self is in the mode of sattva. Happiness based on sense gratification is in the mode of rajas. And happiness based on delusion and degradation is in the form of tapas. But through this devotion, when at last these gunas fall off, how? You gradually develop an unadulterated love for the divine that becomes something overwhelming. And that is that happiness which is found within me alone, within me and me alone, that is transcendental. That is nirgunam. Nirgunam mat apasrayam. At last, when you find that love for me and me alone, then all the gunas has been obliterated. You have developed that nirguna bhakti, the love which is no more having any type of desire. So through all this discussion, what we find, that even that here, Bhagavatam, the Bhakti Shastra, classifies the desire for liberation also as Sakāma. So thus, according to Bhagavatam, even sattvic devotion, though very sublime, can be categorized as Kaivalya Kama Bhakti. It is also a category of Sakāma Bhakti. It is very high. As Swamiji used to say, that a golden chain is also a chain. An iron chain is also a chain. Both can bind. So here also, that idea of the Sakāma Bhakti is still there. It's very subtle. Why? It has been considered as a desire, because in Bhakti Shastra, at last, God is the ultimate reality to whom we have to relate through devotion. See, there's a subtle difference in the yoga, Ishvara of yoga, and the Ishvara of the Bhakti Shastra. What's the difference? In yoga, the idea is there are many Purushas, and this one Prakriti. Just like there are many seeds, the soil is like the Prakriti. The seeds you plant, from the seeds you sow, and the plant will come out. So many individualities are coming from so many Purushas. Prakriti is one. But of all the Purushas, there is one Vishesha Purusha who never gets afflicted, who never comes under the bound of ignorance. Even in the past cycles, he was free. Even in the present cycle, he is free. That's why he is a Purusha Vishesha. He is the Adi Guru. Because as he never came under the bondage, he is the one who can help others to come out of the bondage. And that's why he is the Adi Guru. Kalena Abhyavachhedat. Beyond the restriction of time, he is the Guru. He helps out the beings to come out from the bondage of ignorance. But his role is limited to that. He is just a Purusha Vishesha who can guide us in getting what? Getting liberated. How? By realizing that I am in no way associated with Prakriti. I am the Kevala, only Purusha. That Purusha, there is no need for to be in association with the Prakriti. That's from that the word Kaivalya came. I disjoin myself. So here, the Ishvara's role is just the means. By praying him, by contemplating on him, I develop that power of detachment. And then I get established in myself. But in Bhakti Shastra, Bhagavan is just not only the Adi Guru. He is the creator, the preserver, the destroyer. For him the creation has come into being. We owe our existence to him. And why he has created? Leela. To enjoy the divine play. That he is Ananda Swarupa, full of bliss. And to experience that bliss, he has become many. That how bliss can be experienced? Through love. So to experience his own bliss, he is one, he has become many. And his intention is that we relate to him through love. But at the same time, you cannot force, if love is something which is programmed, it is no more love. Can I love an artificial intelligence? Nowadays there are robots. They have been designed with that unconditional love. Can I love it? No, I know it's a machine. The one whom I love, I should be aware of the fact that the person whom I love, he has the choice to reciprocate or may not. So that's why it's a part of divine Leela that he has created us with a choice. We may go away from him, we may approach him. And out of ignorance, when we go away from him, at the same time he has created the creation in such a way, at last you don't get satisfied. You can never get satisfied. You have to turn around. That's why we sometimes say he has created this creation perfectly imperfect, so that at last we turn around. Why? So that at last our source can enjoy the bliss of union, for which the one has become many. So now you see, the Ishvara of the Bhakti Shastra is different from the Ishvara of the Yoga Shastra. So here, for Bhakti Shastra, what happens? The goal is to please the Lord at last by relating to him, by going back to him and relating to him through devotion. So devotion becomes the means, devotion becomes the end. As long as you don't have the devotion as the end, then devotion to God becomes the means to attain this, your Atmanubhuti. You develop a type of peacefulness, tranquility, that gives you a bliss. That is Sattvic Sukha. But still it is within the bonds of the guna. You have not transcended that. So in the Bhakti Shastra they say that too is also a desire. At last you have to go beyond that. And that's why now this topic of Raga Nuga Bhakti comes, which we will start later. That once through your practice, you have developed that spontaneous love for God, where you have transcended your gunas, all the gunas, where you have transcended your desire for all the so-called name, fame and other worldly pursuits. And you have developed that pure love for the divine, and you love God for that sake of love. That's the Niṣkāma Bhakti, pure Bhakti, Niṣkāma Bhakti. It's neither for Kaivalya Kama. All the Jnana Margis are after this Kaivalya Kama Bhakta, and all those who are resorting to actions because of the Sakāma Bhakti. But the pure Bhakti or the Niṣkāma Bhakti is bereft of this both Jnana and Karma. It is free from all the three gunas and has been described as a state when mind flows towards Ishvara, who is seated in the heart unimpeded, simply by hearing about his qualities, just like the water of river Ganga flowing through the ocean, your mind starts flowing. That no one has to say the water of the Ganga to flow, it spontaneously flows. So at last, your love for the divine becomes like the flow of Ganga. And that's the idea of the Raganuga Bhakti, which we will elaborately bring under discussion in the succeeding classes. So we just end the class by just reciting that verse, the 11th verse of the 29th chapter, the 3rd canto of Bhagavad. What it is saying? Mad guna sruti matrena mai sarva guhashaye manogatir avichinna yatha ganga ambhasa ambudhau. So when you resort to this bhakti, at last what happens? Then all your desires fall off and you develop this spontaneous devotion, which is just like the flow of the river Ganga to the ocean. That's how you become, you commune with the divine through that flow of devotion. So that's the preliminary idea of the Raganuga Bhakti, which we will take up again in the next class. But the next class will be after 5th October. So this for the 2 weeks, because of the Navaratri, we are going to have a break. Then after 5th October, the first Thursday that comes, we will again continue with the study of the Bhagavatam, the introduction to the Bhagavatam. So with this, we stop our discussion today. Thank you all. Namaskar.